And the question is, what produces that change? And that's going to be a complex problem. And I suspect that the change will come from the young.
Yes.
Who are less entrenched in the box. Now, relativity theory came from a young lunatic.
Yeah.
You know, he's 20-something years old. You know, he didn't know any. I mean, he did know better, but you know, he's a crazy person.
Yes.
And he became the rigid person.
Yes.
Who his thinking led to another revolution in science, and he fought against it.
Yes.
It was his creation. You know, but he didn't like the implications of what he had said because he became rigid.
Yes. And there is so much truth in what you say. I mean, just as a side story, just yesterday I was giving a lecture at the university in Mannheim over here in Germany. And I'm working with the students with a student organization, ISAC, as I told you before, I think. And it's amazing to see how eager and receptive this young generation is to really challenge it. I mean, I think they understand that they sit in a box, right?
Yep.
And at least they acknowledge that there is a certain likelihood that they are sitting in a box, and they have a certain interest, a certain desire to look what other boxes might be there, and then to judge for themselves which of those boxes seem to be more suitable from their own personal point of view.
And they're stuck in a dilemma too. And I agree with you. You go to a university and give a lecture, and I too have done that, and the place is packed, and they're all excited, and they're eager, and they're all these kinds of things. But then, by the same token, they have to get a degree.
Oh yes, yes, which is a stay in your box degree, right?
And a stay in your box degree, and they have to pass a Ph.D. committee, and the Ph.D. committee has a tremendous vested interest in making you like them.
Yes.
And if you're going to get a PhD, you don't have an end point. So it's not like you take these courses and then you get this degree. You do that, at least here, on an undergraduate level. But if you're trying to get your PhD, the committee has to sign off giving you the same degree they have.
Yes.
And there's a certain, you know, it's a serious transition from student to peer. And to do that, you have to jump through and pass they're trying to make you the next generation of themselves.
Yes, yes.
And so you get young people who are excited about new ideas, and you have to caution them sometimes. And I know I caution them. I've had folks, newly minted PhDs, come and try to work with me, and I get rid of them. I say, you can't work with me. You can't work with me until you've gone through enough hoops and jumped through enough hoops and gotten tenure. And when you get tenure, then you can challenge. That's the purpose of tenure. Then you're allowed to challenge. But you can't do it fresh out, or you're going to be decimated.
Yes.
You got to get the right credentials and the right thing and the right experience and the right publications, and then go crazy. But you can't get credentialed if you start crazy. No. You have to be in the closet, and so this is letting people out of the closet. That's really what it is.
Yes, and I think
it was interesting. I was just in Chicago giving some talks to. It was 75 people. It doesn't make any difference, and a good chunk of those people were professionals. We had psychiatrists. We had psychologists, we had clinicians, we had various stripes, and it turns out that so they're traditionally trained. So I have my MD. We had folks who were veterinarians. I even had one person who had an MD and a veterinarian degree. Go figure. In the morning she treats humans. In the afternoon she treats dogs. You know, like that. And all of them were there because they're searching. They know that the world doesn't make sense. And they're searching for a new way to understand the world, and they listen to my crazy stuff, and they're eager, you know, they're like, and they weren't young, but they're like young people. So they're chronologically old, but they're mentally young. And they're also this yearning for new stuff is actually coming not from an intellectual challenge, but rather from their personal experience.
Yes.
And it turns out that virtually everyone there at one time or another would come to me, and I make fun of people who are pathologically sensitive. So I make a continuum from people who are insensitive bricks to pathological sensitives, sensitive to everything around them. And all of them at this weekend I was at were pathological sensitives. And so their challenge to the way the world is doesn't come from an intellectual challenge. They just somehow feel they don't fit.
Yes.
The world is not the way they've been taught, even though they've been taught respectable stuff.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with a psychiatrist, and this poor psychiatrist is living in a world where you've gone to medical school, you've gone to psychiatry school, you've gone to whatever you've gone to, and in her day job, she has to give medications and do all those things, and she's coming to a total crisis. She's very young. She's coming to a crisis already. This doesn't make sense. But she still has to dole out the stuff, or she's going to get kicked out of the academy.
Yeah.
And she is a pathological sensitive, and I'm meeting all these by pathological doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you don't fit. By the way the world makes sense, you don't fit. You're an outlier.
Yes.
All these outliers in a room going, help. And they're all looking for a new way to understand the world. And I tell them, I don't know how to understand the world. And I'm simply agreeing with them. In your terms, the red world doesn't make sense.
Yes.
We need a coherent world for them to jump to.
And what strikes me is when I listen to this, is that there is this combination of those pathologically sensitive, all of those really sort of sensitive people, right? And then the rational, intellectual kind of path, which is what I describe as there is knowledge and experience. A lot of people experience certain things, they see certain things, and it's all weird. Yep. But they can't make sense out of it because the knowledge, the intellectual aspect of the intellectual framework which they are stuck in, box, doesn't account for this type of experience.
Yeah.
So, in the way I look at it is, I think we have two different types of people here. We have people who start off with a certain experience, who have a certain sensitivity, who actually see something, feel something, it just feels weird and so on, but they can't make sense out of it. Yep. And what those people need is a bit of rational explanation, a bit of a framework, a bit of a narrative, a bit of a new box which can actually account for their experience.
Yep.
I would say that this group certainly exists. And then I think there is another group of people which, for whatever reason, starts to get interested in these kind of questions and builds knowledge, right? And it builds knowledge and it tries to sort of, because it's just intellectually, it's just interesting. Just curiosity, right? It's interesting to look outside the box. And this group then probably comes to a conclusion that this green worldview model of reality might be the better model. And if they then take this on for themselves, they then come to the conclusion, say, oh, but if that would be true, there must be some experience which actually supports that model, right? Yep. So they first start with this intellectual kind of journey, and then they are seeking for the experience.
Yep.
And honestly, Bill, I would count myself into the second group, right? I've spent so much time sort of getting my head around this and coming up with this idea of this green worldview. And again, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter, but it's probably a better one than the red worldview. But what I'm now actually at is I find myself sort of striving to have experiences which underpin this green worldview belief system, right?
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put. And so we got two directions to go in.
Yes. You can either start with experience and you need to add a bit of knowledge.
Yep.
Or you can start with knowledge and then you probably need to add a bit of experience.
Yep.
But from where I am right now, I am absolutely, I mean, this is just me. I am now convinced that experience and knowledge need to go hand in hand somehow. It's like mixing a cocktail, right? I mean, some people might want to have a bit more of experience and just a sip of knowledge in there, right? Or some people would want to have a 50-50, and it's probably not just the mixture, it's probably also the recipe. So you first pour in a bit of experience, and then you do a bit of knowledge on top, and then you pour in some more experience, and then you put in some more knowledge again. And I think what makes us individual is that recipe. I think it is the recipe, the mix between experience and knowledge, which actually defines our being. Because, I mean, I think we have this, everyone has a certain taste of how this cocktail of this cocktail mixed out of knowledge and experience should taste like.
And that's our story.
I think it is. I think it is. And if we have that narrative there, right? I mean, if this is basically a path of progression, which says, okay, go and mix your own cocktail, right? I mean, go and mix your cocktail made of knowledge and experience. And what we can do, I think, is we can help with creating access to knowledge. Yep. So that the people don't have to sort of just turn every stone around in order to find a bit of knowledge, but we can probably pre-package the knowledge, or we can probably even make it accessible for the average person, so that it is rather easy to have access to that knowledge.
Yeah,
which I think would be a facilitation process already. And then we probably have a list of potential experiences. Not that I think that you can induce an experience, but there are people who can probably help others getting closer to certain experiences.
You can induce an experience.
Yeah,
you can.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So, but if we actually consider ourselves as catalysts in this evolution of consciousness, as a sort of, and again, I'm now using a term which means a catalyst on the transformational journey from getting out of your red box into this new green box, right? I think a catalyst in this on that journey is there in order to at least help people getting the knowledge that they need in order to mix their cocktail, and help people to probably find the experience that they are looking for in order to mix their good tasting cocktail. And I think that is what we should do.
Yep.
Again, I mean, we are just offering the ingredients, right? We put them onto the table, and then people can just mix their cocktail as they like it. And probably we can help them by saying, okay, you seem to be a type of person who actually wants a bit more knowledge of that one right now. So
yep.
That, right?
Yep.
But I think this is the kind of picture that I have in my mind.
Yeah, beautiful. I completely agree.
So we have our narrative, right? We have our target. I mean, in terms of, we could describe the narrative of the green worldview box somehow. Yep. And yep. we have just described in pictures a kind of a model to get from A to B, to get from out of the red box into the green box.
Yep.
And we have identified of what we can do in order to contribute to facilitate this transition from A to B.
Yep.
All right, so we've solved it, right?
Out of questions. Yep.
Job done. We've just solved all.
Hey, I gotta watch the clock. I gotta get to work.
Hey, this is good. Don't consider what we do work.
No, I have to go to work.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I haven't started work yet. I'm on my way now to slave over a hot student. Yes.
Yeah. No, this is cool. We're just doing a lot of interesting stuff here, which could actually sort of turn the world around. And now we have to do some work.
Exactly.